When most people think of black wealth, they think of celebrities. LeBron, Oprah, or Jay-Z. They think of the last 20 years. They think of entertainment empires built in a world that finally, reluctantly, opened a few doors. But what if I told you that over 100 years ago, long before any of that, there were black millionaires who built empires that rivaled the Rockefellers? What if I told you they did it in an America that was actively, legally, violently trying to keep them poor? Mary Ellen Pleasant. We start with the most incredible figure you've probably never heard of, Mary Ellen Pleasant. And if you haven't heard of her, that's not an accident. Her story was buried on purpose. Born enslaved in 1814, Mary Ellen Pleasant didn't just seek freedom, she bought it. She purchased her own liberation and then got to work. She moved to San Francisco during the gold rush, a city exploding with opportunity and chaos. And in that chaos, she saw her opening. She quietly became one of the city's wealthiest financiers. Quietly, because she had to be. A black woman with money in the 1850s California was dangerous, to herself and to the system. She made her fortune investing in laundries, boarding houses, and real estate. But here's where it gets brilliant. She often used white associates as frontmen to navigate racist laws that would have stopped her cold. She understood the game. She played it better than the people who made the rules. But here's what makes Mary Ellen Pleasant truly revolutionary. Her wealth was a weapon. She didn't accumulate money to buy comfort. She accumulated money to buy freedom. For other people, she used her fortune, estimated to be worth millions in today's money, to fund the Underground Railroad. She helped enslaved people escape. She financed their journeys north. She gave them new identities. And when that wasn't enough, she was a major financial backer of John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry. That's right, one of the most famous acts of violent resistance against slavery was bankrolled, in part, by a black woman. Mary Ellen Pleasant was the real mother of civil rights in California. In 1868 to 90 years before Rosa Parks, she fought segregation in court and won. She didn't just make money, she used it to free people, to fight systems, to prove that black enterprise could be the financial engine of the abolitionist movement itself. And for all of that, history barely remembers her name, Robert Reed Church Sr. Next, we go to Memphis, Tennessee, to the story of Robert Reed Church Sr., the first black millionaire in the South. Born enslaved in 1839. Let that sink in. Born enslaved, became a millionaire in the South during Jim Crow. Church's story begins with survival. In 1866, just 1 year after the Civil War ended, Memphis erupted in racial violence. White mobs rampaged through black neighborhoods for 3 days. Robert Reed Church was shot in the head and left for dead in the street, but he survived. And when he recovered, he didn't run. He didn't hide. He didn't leave Memphis. He doubled down. He took his savings, everything he had, and began buying real estate around Beale Street. The street that white Memphis wanted nothing to do with became his foundation. He bought property when it was cheap. He held it when it appreciated. He built wealth brick by brick, dollar by dollar. But Robert Reed Church didn't hoard his wealth. And that's what makes him exceptional. When the city of Memphis denied black citizens access to public parks, when they said black families couldn't use the same green spaces as white families, Church spent $100,000 of his own money to build Church Park and Auditorium. $100,000 in the early 1900s. That's millions today. He created a cultural mecca for black Memphis, a place where black people could gather, celebrate, organize, and breathe. But his most important legacy? The Solvent Savings Bank and Trust, one of the first black-owned banks in America. Think about what that means. Black families could now get loans to buy homes, to start businesses, to build generational wealth that white banks systematically denied them. When white Memphis tried to burn him out, Robert rebuilt, bigger. When they tried to intimidate him, he expanded. That's what legacy looks like. That's what refusing to surrender looks like. Robert Reed Church proved that you could be shot in the head by a racist mob and still become the richest black man in the South. That's not just wealth, that's warfare. Madam C.J. Walker, the most famous name on this list, but her story is often sanitized, cleaned up, made palatable. Let's tell the real story. Madam C.J. Walker, born Sarah Breedlove in 1867 on a Louisiana plantation, was orphaned by age 7. She was married by 14, widowed by 20, working as a washerwoman, barely surviving. By every measure, she should have stayed poor. The system was designed to keep her there, but Sarah Breedlove saw something that no one else was paying attention to. She saw black women suffering from hair loss and scalp disease, caused by harsh products, poor nutrition, and stress. She saw a problem, and she turned it into an empire. She didn't just sell hair products, she sold confidence. She sold dignity. She sold the radical idea that black women deserved to feel beautiful in a country that told them they were ugly. But here's where Madam C.J. Walker's genius really shows. She didn't just build a company, she built a movement. She created a massive direct sales network that employed thousands of black women across the country. Thousands. These were women who had been domestic servants, washerwomen, cleaning the homes of white families for pennies. Now they were entrepreneurs, sales agents, business owners. making their own money, answering to no one but themselves. She gave them financial independence and purpose in an era where their only other option was servitude. By 1919, Madam C.J. Walker was America's first self-made female millionaire. Period. Not black female, not female with an asterisk. The first self-made female millionaire in American history. But her mission was never just about profit. She understood that wealth without purpose is just accumulation. She used her platform to fund scholarships for black students. She lobbied against lynching, traveling to Washington to demand that the government stop the murder of black people. She bankrolled the black education system. She built schools. She funded teachers. Madam C.J. Walker knew that beauty was political, that economics was political, that every dollar a black woman earned was an act of resistance. And she turned that truth into a movement that employed thousands and inspired millions. If you're liking this content and you want to help us continue to put out videos like this, please leave a subscribe. These millionaires changed history, and your support helps us tell their stories. Annie Turnbow Malone. But before Madam C.J. Walker, there was the forgotten visionary, Annie Turnbow Malone. And I need you to understand something. Malone's erasure from history was not accidental. It was deliberate. Malone was the blueprint. She started her hair care company, Poro, before Walker. She innovated the products. She developed the direct sales model. She built the empire first. And at her peak, she was estimated to be worth $14 million in the 1920s. That's equivalent to hundreds of millions today. Here's the part that will blow your mind. Madam C.J. Walker actually got her start as one of Annie Turnbow Malone's sales agents. Walker learned the business from Malone, and then she became more famous. Her name became the one everyone remembers. But Malone? Malone's true genius was something even bigger than products. She built Poro College in St. Louis. And it wasn't just a school. It was a vision of black economic independence made real. This was a massive complex that housed her factory, a beauty school, a theater, a chapel, a bakery, a cafeteria, and apartments for the 75,000 agents she employed worldwide. 75,000 agents worldwide in the 1920s. Annie Turnbow Malone created a self-sustaining economic ecosystem, a city within a city, a place where black women could work, learn, live, and thrive without ever having to answer to white economic power. She was also a massive philanthropist. She donated millions to black orphanages, millions to black schools. She understood that wealth meant nothing if it didn't lift the community. So what happened to her? Why don't you know her name? After a bitter divorce, her fortune was systematically drained by racist courts and white lawyers who saw an opportunity to destroy a wealthy black woman. They bled her dry. They took her company. They erased her legacy. She was the wealthiest black woman in America, and her name was intentionally overshadowed by courts, by lawyers, by a system that couldn't tolerate her success. So, let me say her name again. Annie Turnbow Malone. Remember it. Share it, because her erasure was a crime. Reginald F. Lewis. We jump forward now, past Jim Crow, past the civil rights movement, to the corporate boardroom, to Wall Street, to a new kind of battlefield. Meet Reginald F. Lewis, a Harvard law graduate who wasn't content to be a successful lawyer. He looked at corporate America, at the white men running billion-dollar companies, and he asked a simple question. Why should white guys have all the fun? That's not rhetoric. That's literally what he said, and then he proved it. Lewis wasn't interested in being the exception. He wasn't interested in being the first black anything, just to make white people comfortable. He was interested in winning. He was playing Wall Street chess, and he was playing it better than the people who invented the game. In 1987, Reginald F. Lewis orchestrated a $985 million leveraged buyout of Beatrice Foods, a massive international food company with operations in 31 countries. Let me repeat that, $985 million in 1987. He became the first African American to own a billion-dollar company. Not a million-dollar company, a billion-dollar company. Think about what that means. This wasn't just personal wealth. This was economic power on a global scale. Lewis's story is the modern blueprint. He showed that the same genius and hustle that built Black Wall Street, that created parallel economies during Jim Crow, could succeed at the highest levels of global finance. He proved that when you give Black excellence access to the same tools, the same capital, the same opportunities, it doesn't just compete, it dominates. His memoir, Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun, is more than a book. It's a statement of confidence that blew open the doors to corporate America for a new generation of Black entrepreneurs. He didn't ask for permission. He didn't wait for approval. He just took what was his. Maggie Lena Walker. Back to the early 1900s now. Back to Richmond, Virginia, where the fight was for financial independence in a city built on the ashes of the Confederacy. Maggie Lena Walker was a teacher, a visionary, a woman who understood something fundamental. Economic power was the key to true freedom. She looked at her community and saw the problem clearly. Black families couldn't get loans, couldn't get mortgages, couldn't access capital to build businesses or buy homes. The white banks didn't want their money. So what did Maggie Lena Walker do? In 1903, she founded the St. Luke Penny Savings Bank. When the world told her she couldn't even cash a check, Maggie Lena Walker opened her own bank. She became the first black woman in the United States to found a chartered bank, the first black woman bank president in American history. Think about the audacity of that. The sheer revolutionary audacity of a black woman in 1903 Virginia, former capital of the Confederacy, opening a bank. But the bank was just the beginning. The bank was the tool. The mission was liberation. She used it to finance black businesses that couldn't get capital anywhere else. She helped black families buy homes in a system designed to keep them as renters forever. She employed hundreds of black women, giving them jobs in finance, in banking, in positions of trust and authority. Her focus was always on collective success. She understood that individual wealth meant nothing if the community was still drowning. She proved that when black women lead, when black women control the capital, when black women make the decisions, the entire community rises. Maggie Lena Walker didn't just open a bank. She opened a pathway to generational wealth for thousands of families. John H. Johnson. We end with the man who understood something that everyone else missed. If you control the narrative, you control the culture. John H. Johnson, founder of Ebony and Jet magazines. In the 1940s and 50s, mainstream media had two modes when it came to black people: ignore them completely or portray them as criminals, servants, and caricatures. Black success didn't exist in mainstream media. Black beauty, not acknowledged. Black politics, black culture, black excellence, invisible. Johnson saw the erasure, and he built a megaphone. He created platforms that celebrated black success, that showcased black beauty, that covered black politics with the seriousness it deserved. Ebony became the visual record of black achievement. Every month, it showed black families that they were doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, artists, that they were beautiful, that they mattered. But Jet? Jet became something else entirely. Jet became the heartbeat of the civil rights movement. When Emmett Till was murdered in 1955, most publications looked away. They didn't want to cover it, didn't want to show the brutality. Jet published the open casket photo, the image of what racism actually looked like. That photo changed everything. It woke up America, black and white, to the violence that had been hidden, that had been ignored. John H. Johnson didn't just report history, he changed it. Through Jet's unflinching coverage of the movement and Ebony's celebration of black life, Johnson proved that media was power. He showed that true wealth is not just in dollars, but in the power to define your own image, to control your own story, to tell the truth when everyone else is lying. From Mary Ellen Pleasant's secret investments funding the Underground Railroad to Reginald Lewis's corporate boardrooms, every one of these people proved the same thing. Black wealth isn't luck, it's legacy. The recurring themes are impossible to miss. Self-education when schools were denied, community wealth building when banks refused service, unwavering resistance when the system demanded surrender. They understood something fundamental. You don't ask for a seat at the table. You don't beg to be included. You build your own dining room. You set your own table. You invite who you want. Their stories are the true foundation of modern black business culture. They taught us that genius will find a way, even when the system is designed to stop it. That wealth can be a weapon for liberation. That economic power can fund revolutions. That your success can create pathways for thousands who come after you. These weren't just millionaires. These were revolutionaries with receipts. History tried to bury their stories. They burned the savings books, destroyed the records, wrote them out of the textbooks. They erased names like Annie Turnbow Malone on purpose. They downplayed figures like Mary Ellen Pleasant intentionally, because if you knew these stories, you'd ask dangerous questions. You'd wonder what else was hidden, what else was stolen, what else was erased. But you can't bury brilliance. You can try. You can hide it for decades, for generations. But the truth has a way of surfacing. These 7 millionaires weren't just rich. They were revolutionaries with receipts. And now, you know them. Which of these stories inspired you the most? Which one challenged what you thought you knew? Drop a comment below. And if you want to keep uncovering the lost history that changes everything, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Because next, we'll uncover the lost black Wall Streets that could have changed America forever. The thriving communities that were destroyed. The wealth that was stolen. The futures that were erased. This is just the beginning.